living fully alive in every way. You're listening to Relationship Prescriptions with Dr. Carol.
Are you looking for a good spouse? Hi there, friends. This is Relationship Prescriptions. If you are looking for a good spouse, you're not alone. And if you are, there is only one thing worse than not finding that person, and that is finding the wrong person. Ask anybody who has been married for any time at all, and they will tell you that singleness is not the worst possible state. Being married in a miserable marriage is much, much worse. But how do you find that person? And more importantly, who do you stay away from? There are absolutely certain kinds of people that you want to run from that will absolutely not make a good spouse. And I want to talk about that today. The kinds of men and women that, especially as a Christian, you want to run away from if you want to keep away from a miserable life in the future. And also, I'm going to share with you some practical things to do so that you are ready for that good spouse when God brings them into your life. That was certainly something I experienced firsthand. I did not get married until my late 40s. It's not because I didn't want to. In my case, that was a God blessing that I waited, because I would not have been ready prior to that for the husband that God did bring to me. I needed to grow up. I needed to experience a lot of healing. But it also allowed me a lot of time to think about who is the person that I do want to marry, and staying away from the bad people. In my experience more recently as a physician and as a minister and in coaching men and women and couples, I have seen so much heartache from marriages where one or both people fit into these 5 characteristics, the toxic kinds of people that you absolutely want to stay away from. Now, if you are listening to this and you are already married, God can heal anything and anyone in any relationship where He is given opportunity to do so. But how much better to prevent that kind of heartache and pain in the first place? And that's what I want to talk with you about today. The time to discern the truth about your intended spouse is before you say, I do. During that time of getting to know somebody, when the emotions are high, it can cloud your ability to see the truth, to understand. I learned when I was getting to know my husband, and in the months prior to our marriage, I learned to pray with some deep tears and frankly brokenness in my own heart. I knew my emotions had been hooked. I knew this was something I wanted, but I also knew that if it wasn't what God wanted, it would only bring heartache. So I learned to pray something like this: Jesus, I know what I want. My heart is hooked. But as much as I humanly can, I am laying my human emotions to the side so that I can hear you. I know that if you are in this, it doesn't matter what problem or challenge presents itself, we'll be able to weather this together. But if you are not in this, as much as I might want it, going forward would only bring pain and heartache and destruction. I lay my emotions aside as best as I can so that I can hear your voice. That is the kind of prayer that I would encourage you to be praying as you are evaluating a potential person to be your spouse, whether this would be the kind of person you want to spend the rest of your life with. But here are 5 specific categories of people that I would encourage you to run away from. So let's start. The first category is a person who is not a follower of Jesus. That may sound kind of obvious if you're a follower of Jesus, but it's much more profound than many people actually realize. When Paul says, don't be unequally yoked together with unbelievers, certainly that impacts marriage. It also impacts business and other kinds of things. But the reason for that was not to put some heavenly arbitrary rule in place. It was to save you a lot of pain. If you go into a marriage knowing that you are not on the same plane spiritually, you will be sorely disappointed. This is also something to pray about very specifically, because it's possible for someone to put on a good face, a good front, to be showing up in church and say they're a Christian, or to say that they are becoming a Christian because, they love you, and do that not out of a true heart change in following Jesus. I have seen so many people who have called me or written to me, or who I have talked with on the phone or in coaching, who thought they were marrying a Christian because they looked good on the outside. They were showing up in youth group, or they, said that they were born again, but their life looked nothing like Jesus. And they missed the red flags and the heartache that came later. So, the first category, please be sure that the one who has grabbed your heart, grabbed your eyes, is truly a follower of Jesus, is interested in growing, is not only saying the right things and showing up in the right places on the outside, but that there is some evidence in their life that they are truly living as Jesus intended and growing in that direction. In my life, before I met my husband, there had been a long period of his life where he had been drinking a lot, and it had caused some major destruction in his life. When the two of us got together, he had stopped drinking. That was not something he stopped because he met me. I saw evidence that God had already been working in his life. He had already dealt with those areas in his heart, and my husband had already gone through major changes, and I could see that demonstrated. That's the kind of evidence that I would encourage you to look for in the person who has grabbed your emotions. That's person number one to run away from. Person number two to run away from is a person who is only interested in sex. Our culture has been so super saturated with sex and sexuality, and it's understandable that is, front and center in the kind of attraction you feel for each other. And it should be there. A physical attraction is part of the way God built us. But if the woman that you are looking at, young man, if she is leading with her body, that's very superficial. What is to keep her from leading with her body and attracting other men after you get married? And young woman, if the man who is after you, who you are interested in, is only after your body, what happens when your body starts to change? If you have to use sex to get him, you may have to use sex to keep him, and that's not going to be enough. What happens as the years go by and you get pregnant, or you start getting wrinkles, or whatever as the years go by? Sex is obviously super, super important part of a healthy Christian marriage, but it is not a strong enough foundation to build it on. So if the woman or the man you are after is leading with the desire for sex, the desire for your body, or you are leading with your body, that is not a wise place to build a marriage on. So run from that kind of a relationship. Number 3, stay away from a person who does not come batteries included. Now, in today's world, this doesn't happen quite as often, but whether it's a toy that is bought for kids at Christmas, or you're looking at an alarm clock at at Target or Walmart. It's important to know, are the batteries included, or are you going to have to get batteries separately? The person that you marry, you want to have come batteries included. If you have to be the one to jumpstart everything now, you will have to do that for the rest of your married life. Now, for a woman, young man, if you are looking at a woman, some clues that she may not be coming batteries included is if she is unable to form an opinion for herself, if she has no interest in anything but your relationship, if she has no life of her own, that may be an indication that she is not coming batteries included. Young woman, if the man you are interested in comes no batteries included, that may look like he is being lazy or irresponsible. He is not putting effort into a life, a career. He is making excuses. Now, I am not talking about the level of financial success or academic achievement or anything else. That's not what this is about. But this is about waiting for someone who has enough resilience and strength in their own character that they are putting something into life rather than just waiting for life to give them something. That will absolutely create a lot of heartache in the future if the person you marry does not bring themselves to both the relationship and to life. So make sure that the person you are interested in is coming, batteries included. Now, the kind of person number 4 that you want to run away from is the one who cannot make you a priority. Now, we all have friends and family. We all grow up with different expectations of what men and women's roles should be like in the family, different styles of communicating, different styles of resolving conflict. All of that is normal. But in building a marriage, you need to be sure that the one you are connecting your life with can absolutely make you a priority. If you are a man looking at a woman, a problem can show itself if she believes that the world revolves around her. If she uses manipulation and control to make everybody serve her. She may seem enticing right now, but that will become very, very troubling as the years go by. So if she is manipulating and controlling, thinking everybody should be there to serve her, you are going to end up wearing yourself out trying to please her, and it will never be enough. And if you are a woman looking at a man, this might mean that he cannot leave his mother and father. He cannot make you a priority because he is not leaving home. Remember that scripture that Jesus quoted? He quoted the scripture in Genesis, and Jesus said, "For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be cleaved to his wife." The leaving is important. And if he cannot leave his mother and father, he can't make you a priority. And same thing for women too. Another characteristic of a man who may not be able to make you as a priority is a life so focused around business and money or work or partying or friends or whatever, that he cannot devote himself to you as a priority. That can also show up for women as well. But you want to see demonstrated prior to making the marriage commitment that the one you are connecting with truly is able to make you the priority and leaving all others, leaving all other romantic relationships, leaving their family of origin, leaving other priorities in life, and next to God, make you number one. At all of these areas, including this one, it's sometimes hard to be absolutely certain because things can change as life goes on in the future. But as best as you can, stay away from somebody who cannot make you a priority. This also shows up in blended families. If the one you are marrying has children from a previous relationship, that needs to be taken into account and talked about and worked through in advance so that you know that the marriage comes first. Children are important. Honoring parents is important. Work is important, etc. But you need to be the one who is first in your spouse's life, next to God. And then, number 5, a person to run away from is a spouse or potential spouse who is angry. Proverbs makes a big deal of this about women. In fact, Proverbs says it twice. It is better to live in a corner of the housetop than in a house shared with a quarrelsome wife. That's said in Proverbs 21:9 and 25:24. Proverbs says living in a desert would be better than sharing a house with a quarrelsome woman. Proverbs also compares her to, quotes, a continual dripping. You do not want a life with a woman who is quarrelsome, angry, contentious. This woman will make you and everybody else miserable. The barbs come out of her mouth and drive you and others away. She wears you out just by being around her. It's not worth it. For a man, this may look like someone who is controlling or abusive. That will end up being a toxic marriage. If he is trying to micromanage your life, if he gets angry when you don't do things exactly the way he wants them done, if his anger is stirred up at those times, run away. If he is verbally, sexually, or physically abusive or controlling, run. Your life, literally or figuratively, may depend on it. And if you see those clues before marriage, it is only going to get more problematic after marriage. So those 5 characteristics of people that you want to stay away from, that is not indicative of the grounds for a healthy marriage. Number 1, stay away from somebody who is not a follower of Jesus. Number 2, stay away from someone who is only focused on sex. That is not a viable foundation for marriage. It's a great ingredient. It's not a good foundation. Number 3, stay away from somebody who does not come, batteries included, who is not bringing their energy to the relationship and to life. Number 4, stay away from somebody who cannot make you a priority, regardless of what the other priorities might be, whether it's, parents or children or work or partying or friends or anything else. You as the spouse need to be priority. And number 5, stay away from someone who is angry, who cannot control their anger. Now, all these kinds of people can be fixed. Just like you are, your intended spouse is a sinner. And yes, you are as well. God can work in your life and in all these kinds of people's lives, but don't hitch your life to them in marriage unless you want a miserable life going forward. Now, if you are married to somebody with these characteristics, Yes, that is a different conversation, and we talk about that. That is something that God needs to be in the middle of, and you need some support and healing to deal with. We're talking right now about preventing pain where it's possible to prevent it. And I promised that I would give you a few practical things to think about so that you can attract the right kind of spouse, a good spouse. Number one, become the kind of person your ideal spouse would want. If you want to marry a prince, become a princess. If you want to marry a princess, be a prince. And I don't mean, hair and clothes and makeup and the way you look on the outside, although that's part of it. You want to carry yourself that way. I'm talking about the character that's on the inside. If you want to marry someone who is interesting, be interesting and interested. That's just one example. If you want to marry someone who cares about the world beyond him or herself, you do the same. So become the kind of spouse your ideal spouse would want. Number two, use your head and not your emotions. And I know if you're in the middle of a romantic relationship, that is easy to say and so hard to do. Your emotions are hooked. And that is part of what makes it so glorious. It's part of the way God created us. But do everything in your power to lead with your head. Your emotions are likely to be plenty in themselves. But take the time to think through yourself. Take the time to use your head in talking with others who know your intended spouse. And pay attention to red flags. If something is a red flag now, exhaustively investigate, because it is much more likely that will become a much bigger issue in the future. So make sure if that red flag does not change that you can live with it. Do not expect your spouse to become better in some way after the marriage. So carefully, with your head, investigate any kind of red flags. And then, number three, your posture to find a good spouse is involved in life and involved with God. Stay connected with life in giving of yourself, investing of yourself, connected with people and with life, and stay on your knees. Do not take the position of, oh, God, I like this person. Can you please make them my wife or my husband? Step back and ask God's opinion. Rather than asking God to make what you want to happen, step back a little bit and ask for his perspective on the person, the relationship. If it is God's desire that this relationship move toward marriage, it will be clear to both of you, and you will sense a green light in your spirit. I believe that verse in Colossians that said, let the peace of God rule in your heart. With all big decisions, that's important. It's especially important in choosing a partner to live with for the rest of your life, a husband or a wife. Make sure that you have the green light from the Spirit of God in your soul before you agree to get married. And keep asking God's opinion during the time that you are getting to know your potential spouse. Continue to seek his input in that way, and that will be the best setup possible for a successful marriage. The future is not guaranteed as far as what kind of marriage you will have, but these steps will be important in setting you up for the best possible foundation for the kind of marriage that God wants for you. That is certainly something I did repeatedly during the time Al and I were getting to know each other. I repeatedly went back to the Lord and asked him, as I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, Lord, this is what I want, but I lay my emotions aside so that I can hear your voice. Each time I stayed on my knees until I got a clear sense from the Spirit of God what direction to go. In my case, that was a green light. And our life together as husband and wife was a blessing. Ever since he went home to be with the Lord, I miss him and I cherish the relationship that we had together. I pray that that is the kind of marriage and relationship that you will experience, and that you will prepare yourself by becoming the kind of spouse your ideal spouse will find attractive, by leading with your head and thinking clearly, and then by staying in a posture of involved with life and involved with God, staying on your knees. Thank you for spending this time with me. We do have some links in the show notes for this episode about some articles I have written that unpack these ideas a little bit more, about how to find a good spouse, about 5 women that Christian men should not marry, and 5 men that Christian women should not marry. And then I would love to invite you to sign up to get our singles resources whenever we make one of them available. With some regularity, I write an article or some other resource, especially for singles. That link will be in the show notes as well, to be part of our community in getting those resources for singles. And you can go to the show notes, click on that link, and get all our resources every time they're available. Thank you again for being part of our podcast family. I'd love to hear from you. If you have a question or a comment, you can use the Contact Us page on our website. I read and respond to those personally. And until next time, may God bless you.
Thank you for listening to Relationship Prescriptions with Dr. Carol. Our purpose is to provide trustworthy resources that help you and others live fully alive in every way as God intended. If you would like to help others experience transformation in their lives and relationships, we invite you to partner with us. Text the word GIVE, that's GIVE, to the number 512-980-1620. Or visit our website at drcarolministries.com/donate to make a one-time contribution or a monthly gift. Your financial support allows us to expand our message and to help others. Thank you so much, and may God bless you.